Ava.
Ed.
What are we here to talk about?
You tell me.
Once again, a Tory MP has been found to do something dreadful.
Well, shocking.
Shall we watch?
Yes.
PR agencies are absolutely great. They have established set of contacts. They know how to work the room, etc. The one thing they don't have is direct access to a government minister. We vote in House Commons 2 or 3 times a day. We'll be voting later. You will literally stand at the beginning, at the entrance to the voting lobby, and if you wait there for 5 minutes, the minister has to pass you, and then you've got 10 minutes while you walk around to the next vote to have his ear. We can obviously put parliamentary questions on the table, so PCMS questions on Thursday, so we can ask things in a direct manner in public to see if the reaction we get is consistent with what we get in private, which isn't always the case. There's written questions as well, where we can table things on the public record and get an instant response within 5 working days on any question whatsoever, which obviously nobody else outside the political realm can.
Would it be realistic to get advanced sight of the white paper, for example, when it's sort of finally decided, or anything on those lines?
Probably. That would only be a number of days, so.
Okay, so that would still be useful for investment?
Yeah, for a bit of a defence side.
Absolutely, I could guarantee you would get that within 48 hours of publication, for example.
Before publication?
Yeah, I would make some of that to make sure that happens.
Great.
Pretty extraordinary Times investigation.
Yeah, it's
which showed,
phenomenal.
It's just phenomenal, which showed that Scott Benton, who's the Tory MP for Blackpool South, actively engaging in lobbying. He's offering his services paid to a gambling firm. In exchange, he will table potentially parliamentary motions and written questions in their favour. It's extraordinary.
It's when you think of these things, if you were a politician and you're wanting to engage in this kind of subterfuge almost, like, would you not be a bit more like sly and be like, maybe I could do it? He's saying explicitly, I will break parliamentary rules in exchange for like cash.
And going deep into the mechanisms of parliamentary procedure as well, like showing you, I can literally stand up in the House of Commons and ask the Secretary of State questions that will benefit you. I will mill around with other MPs who can service you. He's so deep in Erskine May here. He's like absolutely, he's got like the public in a stranglehold here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and also, I think it's just quite, like this situation is just quite funny. It's just quite ludicrous. Imagine being the 2 reporters asking these questions. Imagine like walking away and be like, I can't, was that,
Yeah.
is this on? Is this camera that I'm wearing on?
Imagine like the expectation window that they thought what could be achieved here. They might get like a little kind of like, oh, a little backhand, or maybe I'll just help you out here. Instead, he's like, take it all, like have all of it. It's just incomprehensible. It's like, do you know, I would argue this is worse than the Owen Paterson lobbying scandal that took place. So Owen Paterson, he was paid by Randox, which is a private healthcare firm. He was paid to the tune of something £100,000 a year, and he in turn would put them in touch with government ministers, and some would say that was how they ended up securing contracts during the COVID era, the pandemic, that severely profited Randox. He lost his seat over that. He lost the whip and he was asked to leave Parliament. He had to resign. This is worse. Because at least the Randox thing was declared. At least that was just like something that was written on paper that no one thought to question. Like, like maybe we should do something about this.
And also, I suppose with the Randox thing, it was for contracts to do with COVID, wasn't it? It was for PPE. Yeah. So at least that had an element of public service. He's offering to the gambling industry. There's going to be a reform to the gambling industry for the first time since I think 2005 to try and make it it's like much less damaging for people who, because gambling is a very like harmful practice. Like gambling addicts, it ruins lives. And so the gambling lobby is up in arms about this, and so there's no even argument of public service to anyone but the gambling lobby, who have predatory practices, who do all these things. And it's also they also have a very often practice things like they take MPs out to Ascot or Wimbledon, football games, things like that. So there's no public good argument either. It's just kind of entirely self.
Well, I don't know. If the MPs are well rested and have had a good time at a sporting event on a weekend, maybe they'll be better public servants during the week.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think this does in terms of it damages the House of Commons' reputation is going to be the allegation against them, I think.
Yeah, but it's good to see because this is going on. I mean, the human side of this is, of course, MPs who stand to gain monetary gain from companies will be susceptible to lobbying. We know it's going on. It's just you didn't expect to see it as barefaced as this. You know what actually made me quite sick during that was his criticism of the Secretary of State. He's talking about Lucy Fraser, right?
I think so.
And he basically is insinuating that she's silly because what he's arguing is, she's going to put in these gambling reforms and that's terrible for you. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She needs to, get with the program, help you out, throw you a few extra million. It's kind of sexist actually. But it's just sort of like another example in a long slew of sleaze that has overtaken the Tory party or been brought to light in the Tory party over the last couple of years. I mean, we were talking just before we started this about the sexual abuse allegations that are levied against the Tory party. I mean, just in the last 2 years, there's been 8 serious allegations of sexual misconduct that have led to either the Tory MP losing the whip, losing their seat, or being arrested. Mm-hmm. How is it that endemic in the party?
We were talking recently about, we were discussing in the office the timing of the next general election, and someone made the point that in order for the Conservatives to, best case scenario for the Conservatives, they have a clear run to the next election of kind of just competence, no scandals. It's been a day. Yeah. and something's come up.
It's like all they have to do is not sexually assault someone and not lobby.
Yeah.
And then you'll be okay. You might keep your seat.
I think he's only got a majority of a few thousand.
And he's faced a vote of no confidence by his local party.
Oh my God.
They've already ousted him, so he's actually not going to be running in that seat at the next election. But he can be parachuted into another seat.
I'm not sure. Are they? Do you think it's likely?
He does quite good bidding for the Tory party because
the gambling lobby as well.
And the gambling lobby, because he's pretty heinous. So, I mean, his local party, the reason that they called this vote of no confidence was because he had been, in their words, a public embarrassment on Twitter. So he'd been...
That's so damning.
He'd been... there was one tweet, I'll read it to you. So ITV News, they tweeted, an ambulance has been captured rushing away from a Merseyside picket line to attend an urgent call for a young child. And he quote tweeted it with, or in other words, doing the job they're paid to do. Scott.
Yeah.
And then there was that misogynistic tweet about Angela Rayner he liked.
He liked a tweet which insinuated that because Angela Rayner was a teenage mother and a grandmother in her 30s, that she was in some way ethically worse than Boris Johnson.
Nice.
Which is astonishingly just misogynistic. And he also implied that Match of the Day was better without Gary Lineker when there was that presenter of this show.
Why did he even wade into that argument?
Oh, it just shows. I think there's a calibre of Tory MP, a 2019er, who's just so, I think they know how vulnerable their seat is, or how precarious their position as a parliamentarian is, and they're like, okay, well, I need to, their success the next election is dependent on the culture war playbook that we talk about. I think we've talked about it in every single one of these.
Yeah.
So they're banging that drum every chance they get to look like, I'm a culture warrior. I will win this fight because my career depends on it.
Which is ridiculous, because I think this goes to exemplify the scourge that social media has had on British politics, because in your local seat, the job of an MP, let's just break it right down to the beginning. You are elected to represent a local constituency. You're elected to represent those people who vote for you. And back in your constituency, you're supposed to be dealing with casework. So when someone has been made homeless, or perhaps they can't get a doctor's appointment, you're supposed to lobby, legal lobbying, on behalf of them and help them out. Instead of focusing on that, all these MPs are now so embedded and, emboldened by the culture war. They're on Twitter shouting about Gary Lineker rather than actually dealing with their constituency work. And I think that is going to wear thin at the next election. Like, I'm thinking about my local MP. I shall not say. Has he served the community well, or has he just been lobbying for an extra salary with a government position, or has he just been working, steaming ahead, trying to better himself rather than his constituents? Like, I think local people take notice of that.
Yeah, they do. And people, when you go to, wherever you go, people say they're very aware of whether or not their MP is involved in community events. I went to Rishi Sunak's constituency last summer, and people were saying quite effusive in praise of him as a local MP, which I was quite surprised about, because he's Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's a busy, obviously very, very busy, powerful role. But they said he was, Richmond is a constituency, isn't it? He was at local events, helping out, making himself known in the constituency, which is, if the Chancellor of the Exchequer couldn't do it and to not embarrass himself at like a local level, I don't know, his policies are kind of embarrassing.
Rees-Mogg's the same as well.
Yeah, he's
known to be quite a good local MP. It's just this culture war that they propagate at the top, that on a national level, that is embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know who's also quite embarrassing? Dominic Raab.
Just in general.
Just in general. But so his seat is Esher and Walton, which is in Surrey. It's just on the cusp of London, and I went there a couple of months ago to talk about Monica Harding, who's the Lib Dem who could take the seat. And basically Dominic Raab has just been out and about canvassing for a really long time now. So he's been turning up at like local fetes and knocking on people's doors. And it just must be so bizarre if you are living in Esher and the Justice Secretary knocks on your door and it's like, can I guarantee your vote?
Or just the spectre, feeling like spectre of the long arm of the law has arrived for some misdemeanour.
He will lose his seat potentially at the next election. It's so close, and that area is very Lib Dem.
Well, on that happy note, shall we leave it there?